If we want to change our habits, we're often met with a barrage of information telling us to go big or go home. We wait for the wave of motivation to inspire us, often encouraging us to set unreasonable goals, and then to blame ourselves when we inevitably fail. But what if I told you that in order to truly change your life, you had to start tiny? That repetition doesn't create habits, and the importance of celebration is largely underrated and yet is the key to successful behavior change. The essence of tiny habits is this: take a behavior you want, make it tiny, find where it fits naturally in your life and nurture its growth. If you want to create long-term change, it's best to start tiny. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how tiny habits can change your life by BJ Fogg. He's the founder of the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University, and with over 10 years of experience in research, he really understands what it means to create tiny habits and change your life. If you're new here and you like things all sustainability, low impact living and habits, then hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because this is going to be a series and you don't want to miss a video in it. Over the past few months, I have given you over 500 ways to live more sustainably and healthily. But today I want to show you exactly how you can use tiny habits to untangle bad behaviors, create positive ones, and over time, truly change your life. A quick thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, but more about them at the end. Through examples of real people who Fogg has taught his behavior model to, backed by more than 2 decades of research, this book explains the science behind his comprehensive system for thinking clearly about human behavior and for designing simple ways to transform your life. Fogg uses the method of going tiny because tiny is fast. It means you can start immediately, tiny can grow big, and tiny doesn't rely on motivation or willpower. Tiny is transformative by nature. Behavior happens when motivation and ability and prompt converge at the same time. So there are roughly 7 steps in Fogg's behavior design model, and we're going to go through them systematically and talk about why each one is important. So let's start with the first one. Firstly, we'll talk about how to clarify your aspirations or outcomes. Secondly, how to explore behavior options, where it's important to be wildly optimistic with what you want to achieve. Step 3 is where you match yourself with specific behaviors. Fogg calls the behaviors that match you the best and are therefore likely to be more effective golden behaviors. Step 4 is to start tiny. So after you have mapped out your golden behaviors, you find a way to make them as small as possible. Step 5 is to find a good prompt. And step 6, arguably the most important step, is to celebrate success. Fogg says that by celebrating each time we perform a tiny habit, we drum into our brain that we have achieved something positive. It is this feeling of success that keeps us coming back to repeat our tiny habits over and over again. So, what does this look like? Well, I wanted to start incorporating more exercise into my daily life because I completely stopped. So I, 1, clarified my aspiration, do some form of exercise every day. 2, I explored behavior options. Does this look like squats, going for a run, doing Pilates, using the ski erg machine, doing 1-minute plank every day, doing 10 star jumps, yoga, following HIIT routines on YouTube, or watching IG lives that fitness influencers are doing, or just simply find a workout partner. Third, I matched this with specific behaviors. This means finding your golden behaviors. A golden behavior is something that you have the ability to do. So for me, I can easily do squats and will have a high impact. For example, will be effective at helping you to achieve your aspiration, which for me was do more exercise daily. So I decided on doing squats as this was easy for me to do and would have a high impact in achieving my goal. Step 4, I started tiny. This means making the behavior really easy by making it tiny because motivation is unpredictable and we don't want to rely on it. Make behavior so tiny that you don't need much motivation. By going tiny, you create consistency. By staying tiny, you get your new habit firmly rooted. So my tiny habit was doing 5 squats every day. Step 5, find a good prompt. The best prompts for recurring habits are action prompts. These are things you already do in your life, like go to the loo every morning after you wake up, or make a coffee and sit at the table to drink it. So for me, I chose, as soon as I flush the toilet, I will do 5 squats. Step 6, Celebrate success. As soon as I have completed my 5 squats, I will do a little dance, smile and say, yay. Your celebration can be tiny or huge, out loud or in your head, a simple smile or a full-on dance. Remember, celebration and feeling good is what really hammers home your habit. Positivity creates habits, not repetition. The good feeling of celebrating wires the new habit into your brain. You'll find that celebration is surprisingly effective and it can be quick and easy, even fun. Now that you've seen how I implemented tiny habits into my life, let's try and practically put them into yours. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to write down what your aspiration is, what one thing that you really want to implement in your life. It could be something like learning a language, it could be doing more exercise, it could be eating more healthily, it could be spending more time with friends. Write it down now. Once you've written down what your aspiration is, the most important step now is to explore some behavior options. So what kind of things can you do to achieve this tiny habit? So for example, if we go back to what I was talking about doing some exercise, I'm going to write down a cloud-like shape that Fogg suggests. And off that, I'm going to come up with as many different ideas as I possibly can. And Fogg says that it's incredibly important to be wildly optimistic. And he calls this method magic wanding. So again, pause the video and come up with at least 10 different ideas that you can match behaviors to the aspiration that you are trying to achieve. Now step 3, take a look at those behaviors and really ask yourself, which of these do I have the ability to do? Which of these can I practically get done and are easy enough that I really don't need much motivation? Choose just a few. Matching yourself with the right behaviors is the most critical step in the behavior design process and an important place to return to when troubleshooting. Now that you have your golden behaviors, as again Fogg calls them, it's time to make sure that you start tiny. So how can you make those behaviors that you've chosen, that you have the ability to do and that don't need very much motivation, how can you make them so small that you definitely know you'll be able to do them? So let's take reading for example. If you decided you wanted to read more and your behavior was to read every night, for example, let's get more specific and let's make it really tiny. So after I get into bed, I pick up my book and I read 1 page. That's it. That's how tiny we are starting. So when I get into bed, I pick up my book, I start with 1 page. So 1 page a night is your tiny habit. Now, I mentioned after I get into bed, I pick up my book. That's because the next step is to create a prompt that really ensures we can wire in those tiny habits and never forget to do them. Without a prompt, a tiny habit simply won't be made. So find an action prompt of something you already do. So after I get into bed, at nighttime, I pick up my book. The reason why Fogg is very much for action prompts instead of other kind of contextual prompts is because these actions are already embedded in your life so seamlessly and naturally that you don't have to think about them. And because of that, they make fantastic prompts. He uses the term anchor because your action prompt becomes an anchor for your habit. You simply need to figure out what comes after. So, after I do this, I do my tiny habit. And then it all comes full circle back to celebrating success. So every time you do your tiny habit, remember to say yes or yay or do a little dance, something that really celebrates the fact that you achieved that tiny habit. I promise you, it will keep you coming back. The reason why I mentioned earlier that tiny habits are transformative is because literally out of the smallest action can grow a multitude of incredibly transformative behaviors. For example, me doing squats turned into me working out 4 times a week, which turned into eating better, which turned into walking more, which turned into cycling to the gym, doing my exercises, cycling home, eating better, feeling better, being in a better mood, and just having more productivity. Now, this did take a long time, but I got there in the end, and it has been hugely transformative for not just my health, but also every other aspect of my life. Tiny really is transformative, and you just have to allow it to grow and multiply. Starting tiny and staying tiny creates truly life-changing habits. I just want to say a massive thank you to Squarespace for helping turn my tiny habit of social media into a full-time career. Squarespace gives people a powerful and beautiful online platform for which to create your website. I host mine with Squarespace, and it's got powerful blogging tools to tell my story, share my updates, and post photos and videos that you guys would love. So head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/sustainablyvegan to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, this was a really quick introduction into how tiny habits can change your life, and I really do recommend buying and reading this book. This has been single-handedly the most important book on habits that I have read over the whole experience of trying to read as many habit and productivity books as possible. This one and one more that I will be doing another video on, but I really do recommend this book over any other books in terms of productivity and habit change, because a lot of people have also gained their knowledge about how to make habits and design behavior change from BJ Fogg. Because as I said before, he is the creator of the behavior design lab at Stanford University, and he spends his days teaching other people how to implement tiny habits into your lives. So I love this book. I really recommend it, and it is the reason why I have started reading again and read so many books. But I'll be talking about that in another video as well. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really supports my channel. And if you'd like to see some of my other habits videos, I will link them down in the description below. So maybe watch next my zero waste habits that I actually still do, or my minimalist ones. And thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. See you guys in the next video. Bye.